order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence for our men and women serving. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Michelle, will you read the Open Public Meetings Act?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Here.
Mrs. Labow?
Here.
Mr. Mania? Mr. Perkins?
Here.
Mr. Roman?
Here.
Mr. Ferrante?
Here.
Mr. Nacastro?
Here. Up for discussion first is the MOTV ordinance. Mr. Perkins, I assume?
You assume correctly, Mr. President. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, council members, I've asked the clerk, and she's provided you with a copy of Chapter 15, which is also the MOTV ordinance, which the council had passed back in 2012. This, as you know, I've been working on with Ms. Brett over the past year. We've tried to work together with Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Larry Reynolds, to come up with some better alternative for how the Mount Olive television could better serve the community, albeit I think what started off as a gangbuster has fallen by the wayside now. It's just an advertisement of pretty much a rainbow, the better portion of any particular day. Council meetings are not kept up to date. We still haven't even seen our reorganization meeting from the beginning of this year posted. So a little disappointed the way this has gone on. I believe, if Ms. Brett, you can correct me if I'm wrong, there really are absolutely no members per se of the Mount Olive Television Committee. I attribute that to the author of this ordinance, who, if we go to the second page, when we look at the committee to be established, it has a committee of 9 members and where they would be drawn from. And then we go down to the committee has to elect their officers, their chairman, their vice chairman, their secretary, the meetings, how they have to hold an annual meeting, and Open Public Meetings Act, and the powers and duties. This ordinance is set up almost as if you were setting up another planning board, zoning board of adjustment, or board of health. And I believe the restrictions that we've placed upon participation by, hopefully by the members of our community who would have things to be able to offer us, we've kind of blocked them out. And we said, look, here's the members, and this is the way it's going to be. And we've kind of prescribed something that is more akin to a council meeting, the way it would literally be run. In over 2.5 years, we have no members. It is sparse at best. We have made great strides through our township here. Our RT committee has done wonderful on having, for the most part, on having council meetings and all put up. We do stream them on our township website so that people can see exactly what the mayor and council have discussed, how we voted, and what we're doing on their behalf. My recommendation is that we abolish this ordinance, because personally, I don't think any committee per se, as a regular standing committee, needs to be set up by ordinance. I think it would be set up by resolution, not unlike we have set up the old Pride Committee we did by resolution. We also did the old Public Safety Committee by resolution. I think a resolution should be put together, and I can continue to work with our township attorney if the council sees fit to steer me in that direction, to put together a resolution that would incorporate some of the better portions of what's in this ordinance. I mean, there are some ethical things and policies that should be followed, things that should be not permitted. But in order for us as a community to be able to go out there and promote a business, the way the policies and all are written and the ordinance, you can't do that. You kind of walk on an eggshell, and if I were to go out and start at the top of, or bottom of Route 46, and the very first business that I stopped into, I'd like to be able to stop in and say, let's take the car dealership that's there, the Blue Star, whatever it's called now, and stop in and say, well, here's an auto repair shop, and introduce ourselves, give him 10 minutes to explain what his business is, where they're located, what they do for the community, and that would be it. Go on to your next business and be able to present those in small 10-minute blurbs, just so that the people in the community who don't have access and don't YouTube or Facebook or otherwise be able to see what's going on, especially some of our senior residents, give them an indication of where things are and what these businesses do. I fully subscribe to the fact of we do not do advertisements or promotions. So if any particular business along any of the strips in Flanders or in Bud Lake has a sale, $25 off, buy 4 tires, get 1 free, no. We should not be promoting any particular sale. But their particular business, I know the Office of the Mayor and our Special Projects Coordinator and all of us, from time to time have reached out to our local businesses, asking them to participate, to donate, and to assist in our service to our residents. And I think we owe it to them to be able to assist them, at least to let the residents know where they are. So I've asked, again, I've worked through this during the year. I've talked with Mr. Canning, I've talked with Ms. Brett. Jeff and I have probably spoken. He's probably tired of hearing from me already on this. I'd like to lay this to rest, as I said last year. Get rid of it as an ordinance, because it really should not be an ordinance. Come up with a policy that's in a resolution that opens membership up to the entire community. And if after a year you don't find, I would like to see it in charge of the business administrator through the projects coordinator. I would also think that the council should take Sean, correct me, it's $2,000 a year we get, we probably got, what, 4 or 5 years left of that?
Yeah, franchise agreement, I believe the franchise agreement runs through 2018.
But it was
We just submitted for the $2,000 scholarship early January. We'll be getting that check probably by April.
I think it's 10 years they have to pay that money for us, if I'm not mistaken. It was a total.
Yeah, if my numbers, I think it's 2008 to 18 or 9 to 19, thereabout.
So, I think instead of us, and I believe historically we've taken that, we've rolled that over to the school, of course, who has the PEG channel, who is the people that we had originally gotten the $25,000 gift from to be able to get this thing set up. I don't think we should be rolling it over to the school, because the school is really not doing any service to the community. When you watch anything from the school, it's the sports. Now, granted, if your child is out there and they're one of the ones that's playing, you probably sit in front of that TV set for the whole game. But for the vast majority of the people in Mount Olive Township, I don't believe that their children are playing in those particular sports, albeit it's a good thing for them to be able to put onto the TV station. But I believe there's other things that should be there, and I think that $2,000 should be used here within our administration to offset any cost associated with the administering of the Mount Olive Television resolution policy. And that's all I have on that, Mr. I'm open to any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Canning.
Just I know I moved 1,200 RPM per minute, but I have to tell you, if you dump the MOTV on the VA's office as well, I don't know when I'd find time to do this. I really have no idea. I think it should be taken away from I agree with you, but whether the council takes it on or something, you're gonna have to find somebody with the hours to be able to do it right. I gotta tell you, it would be extremely hard for us to get this done during the day.
And my alternate answer, if Mr. Roman, you want to go ahead?
Sean, how many hours do you anticipate this taking up per week?
Well, it all depends on the type of programming. If council's gonna want some type of, proactive programming like they envision of, okay, we're gonna have camera over at the senior center, we're gonna be covering community events, it all takes hours. So then the question becomes, okay, who does this? And I don't know that answer. I know at one point the seniors were very enthusiastic about it, whether you co-op them or some other community groups are able to get some type of forum or a structure in place where people can, ideally, yeah, you get to vet those videos, but it still takes hours. So I mean, who do we, do we get it to IT? Scott doesn't have any hours left in the day. Do we get, do we use an intern program where somebody does it that way? I'm sure there's a way of doing it, but it's tough to say, okay, this person is gonna do it, this person's gonna do it. You're kind of maxed out. I know Scott works underneath me, and I know he's as busy as I am all day long. It's,
And is this something that you think a part-timer would be able to handle? Not that I'm recommending at this time that we hire somebody, but is this
Depends on the
something?
mission that council wants, and I don't disagree with Councilman Perkins. I think the programming should be there. I think we just have to find that appropriate structure. I had concerns when this ordinance came in 3.5 years ago for the same reasons that Ray is mentioning. Perhaps do you want to have it as a council liaison? You just got to have does council make themselves the committee? Did you come up with goals monthly as part of a, God bless you,
Bless you.
as part of a council committee? Hey, this month, we know we have this, we have interns, we have, media specialists in the high school willing to film it, that sort of thing. It's not an easy, round peg and a round hole solution.
Mayor?
I think it is a disaster that has not been resolved in any fashion that I've heard to date. And I think if you really want to make it work, you need to hire a part-time person whose job it is to fill the airtime. And you give them direction. I think it's, from the get-go, it was over-regulated, or at least an attempt to over-regulate, just to get it to a point where everyone could agree on what was happening. There is nobody in the township who has the time to really put together the information that would be required to fill the time. And if you really want to make it work, as I said, I suggest you hire a part-time person whose job it is solely to go out and film those things that we believe are important to the township, whether it be some township event such as the Mud Run, some new business that's coming into town, and you keep it as a committee of council to review the material to make sure that it's appropriate. I don't know that you need all of these regulations, but you just simply make it so that it's not particularly about anybody's one-time event sale at their property, so it's a big commercial, but rather, here's the mall at 206, here's the mall at Sutton Plaza, here's the mall up in Bud Lake on Route 46. These are the stores that are there. Please visit them. Here is the Mud Run. Here are the things which are happening in town. You can really get some programming done if you had somebody whose job it was solely to go out. So you appropriate $2,500 or $3,000 to make it their part-time job to go out and do this work. That's the only way that you're really going to move it forward.
Yep.
Is there any benefit with the rec department at all using this right now? I
Well,
mean, as a way.
The benefit to the rec department is the same benefit that there is to the town. Anytime that we can get sponsorship in terms of, or recognition for an event which is occurring, there is some benefit. First of all, I don't know who watches these
Well,
channels generally.
that was-
I think people hit or miss them as they're going to whatever channel they're ultimately going to. You might catch somebody's eye in terms of, oh my God, that's in Mount Olive. I shop at that store. I'm going to participate in that event, but nobody sits there with channel 26 or 33 or whatever channel it's on. I don't even get it.
I don't either.
And let's see what's going on in Mount Olive. So if you really want to make it work, let's appropriate some money for it in the budget. Let's hire a person whose job it is to go out and create content, and then have somebody appointed through council to review the content to make sure that it's appropriate for airing. I think it's,
One of the things, if that's the route that we do go, one of the things I would like to see with that to make it worthwhile, that is to have it also on an online channel somewhere. Because it's not just, there's no way to watch it. Like, I know most people I know of, a lot of them don't get it anyway, because we all get satellite. So you're not gonna get it anyway, and you got two dividing cable companies, and you don't know what station. So if we do allocate money for that, we should find out what it's gonna be, that we can broadcast it on one of a cable, what do you call it, internet channel, and have, part of it as the TV on our system or not. Because that's another avenue where a lot of people, young kids would go, if they want to look up something. That's just one of my
I
thoughts.
think that is great in theory, and Sean tells me we have a YouTube channel in
Right.
town. I think ultimately, the kids are not really going to go look for the material at
No.
the end of the day. So I think what you're looking at is, do we want to spend the money to put material together that somebody is going to ultimately happen upon the material? Unless it's something which is an interview with Joe Smith, who just returned from Afghanistan and who was a Mount Olive resident who's being interviewed, and it's advertised on my webpage and on the township webpage, and maybe we drive some people to the channel at that point in time. Or maybe it's an interview with the local business owner, and the business owner knows when it's going to be advertised, and he gets his people. Otherwise, really what it is, and I've caught a lot of like Morristown Planning Board meetings, and it's not because I sat there and wanted to see what was at the Morristown Planning Board. It was, I was changing from channel 22 to 25 and happen to be on 24, I'm like, oh, you know what, I'm in government, this is fairly interesting to me, I'll watch it for a little while. So I think the council really has to either, one, decide that this is an important avenue for us in terms of getting out our message on behalf of Mount Olive and allocate some money towards it, or make the decision that we're just going to continue down the road that we have, which is trying to get on the council meetings when we can get them on. So that's really where I see it at.
Colleen, did you have, I know you had your hand up before John.
I was going to say the same, that when you mentioned the Recreation Department, I would think that it would be a benefit for the Recreation Department to help to promote the activities in town and so on and so forth. But my question would be, like, let's say we have one business that they're, let's say, well, Sam's does a lot of promotion, sponsors our events. So if we went over to Sam's and said, oh, we videotape it, want to thank Sam's for, sponsoring the Mud Run or whatever. Are we allowed to do that? That's not exactly advertising for them, it's thanking them. So we're allowed to do that, right? Jeff, do you know?
I mean, I'd say as long as it doesn't cross the line into, as the mayor said, getting into like a one-time event or a sale,
Right.
or saying, Sam sponsors the event, and by the way, come to Sam's because we have a sale this weekend or something like that.
No.
Yeah.
Just stop by and say you just want to
Talk
thank.
about why they sponsor it.
Right.
$25 off.
Right.
each person.
Because I think it'd be nice, like, if you have an event, if you had somebody doing the camera, you went around to all of our sponsors in town and said, we want to thank this one, that one, the other one for sponsoring, but
Right.
if you're going to do something like that, you have to do it all the time, so you don't want to trip yourself up.
John, did you?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of agree with the mayor. I think if we're going to do it, let's do it right and hire somebody. But in my mind, it's going to be more than one person. You're going to have a host and then someone who's videotaping, at least two people. And how far are we going to go with,
It's a question,
somebody to
it
do
really
this.
comes down to a question of how much money you want to throw at it and what benefit you think you're going to get out of it.
Daniel and then Ray. Go ahead, Daniel.
No, with me, I agree with the Ray's recommendation that we should dissolve this ordinance because it has failed in its mission, and we should not spend any more money into it because it has never worked, even from the school board part of the program. First of all, it never worked there. As a matter of fact, the school board and the superintendent were. It was just, they were not responding, but I think from the town's point of view, that's when we reactivated it. And then it has been doing, but so far it has not been very effective. Its mission has not been very effective, and it would make no sense to put money into something which is not working.
My suggestion, based upon all of the discussion tonight, is that there is a member of the Mount Olive Chamber of Commerce who is in the videotaping business. And what I suggest we do is that we contact him and say, this is what we're thinking about doing. And I'll have Lisa reach out if that's what council wants to do. And say, bring him in and say, we thought of you, this is what we're thinking about doing in terms of our TV station. What would it cost for you to produce a show? We appoint a member of council to be the person who looks at it just to make sure that the content is appropriate. And then to come back to the council if he believes that the content is inappropriate and explain why he believes that the content is inappropriate and let the overall council make the decision. I don't think we need a lot of regulation. If we want to actually find out from this individual what it would cost, we don't have to make the decision tonight. We'll bring him in at the next council meeting. He's got experience in the business, and find out what it would cost for him to produce a show on behalf of Mount Olive Township to be put on our cable station. I think that's the best way to
Yeah,
proceed
I
from this
think that's excellent, and he's got the
Right,
equipment,
Alex.
know-how.
Yeah, I remember, and Rob, you probably sat down with Paul Citra when we used to do those half-hour shows. We used to have half-hour tape segments that were done, and then they were on the TV station, where you could watch. And we talked, the different sports. I know that Planning Board Chairman Howie Weiss was on. We've had other people from the community that were, and they were interviewed by the mayor. and it was on specific programs that they were doing. And I can't remember, but they were relatively cheap, like $300-400 tops.
Yeah, they didn't cost much, but to me, they were political campaigns for the mayor, and.
Right, and this,
Right.
but you can
do
have something like that and have that on there in the $2,000 that you're already getting from Cablevision. So the money just flows out to somebody, and I agree, the Chamber of Commerce person is probably the best person to do it.
I guess the one thing we have to identify is what is going to be, what's the mission and intent, whether it is just to promote our sport, the rec activities that we do, or is it to promote the town in general? And in that regards, it'll tell us whether we have the person, if we intend to hire somebody, whether they will be in part of the administration per se, or part of the recreation. And, I see that more something along the lines of, like, say, a community outreach person where their job is to pull in stuff that is, pro Mount Olive, whether they be video, putting up segments from the mud run, from the carnival, or from, a local, civic event.
Well, can I follow up on
Yes.
what Alex is saying? I don't think that's actually a bad concept, and sitting here thinking about it, I think that the best way to go, as I said, is to bring in this individual. In terms of the content, perhaps the person from the council who is the liaison to Mount Olive MO could meet with the business, or at least speak to the business administrator and say, okay, what do you think this week's show should be about? These are some topics. And between the administration and the town council person, give some direction ultimately to the person who we retain, and say, okay, you know what, we think that perhaps football is a hot issue this week. Let's talk to the rec person in football. Or perhaps there's a new business that, Siemens is expanding. Let's talk to Siemens. Or let them decide. You have too many cooks in the kitchen, it bogs down the entire, and that's really what this ordinance is.
Yep.
So, again, my suggestion is, let's bring in the person from the Mount Olive Chamber of Commerce, whose business is right over the Musconetcong River on Route 46 before you get to actual Hackettstown. Let's see what his thoughts are, to give us some direction, and continue the discussion at that point in terms of whether or not we want to throw money at this, or whether or not we just want to leave it where it is.
Correct, I agree. And bringing somebody in is a good idea, professional, let them
Yeah.
see what they have, and with a lot of ideas, but we gotta see what they have, it's good.
And I agree wholeheartedly with the mayor. I think, lady and gentlemen, that's where we need to go. Moving forward, it's failed miserably, and as Daniel has attested, even from the Board of Education's standpoint. And if we're going to continue, we've only got a few more years. You got 3 more years worth of getting money from Cablevision by virtue of us, now, of course, renegotiate another 15-year franchise agreement, maybe get more money in.
Right.
But if you're going to make a television station that's going to be informative, then yes, I agree that with the mayor, let's bring somebody in. As far as the ordinance, whatever you need to do, Jeff, to move forward to abolish the ordinance, then I think the council should just get rid of this ordinance and start anew in the direction that the mayor has looked at, along with council input.
Timing-wise, I would just want some direction from council as far as, do we want to abolish the ordinance prior to bringing this individual in, or do we want to?
Yeah, just get rid of
The
it.
ordinance is ineffective.
Yeah, get rid of it first.
Just get rid of it.
And then we'll make arrangements to bring in the professional, talk and see what.
Talk and see where you go, and then you could always do a thing by resolution on how the monies would be funded and where it comes from.
That's a good plan. Okay,
All right, thank you, everybody.
thank you. Morris Habitat application for home funding. I guess that's you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Morris Habitat had indicated that it's a requirement that council discuss their upcoming application. To what extent, I don't know, but we all know what the great work is that they've done in the past here, both on Logier and Hatacawana. Morris Habitat is looking to improve 2 locations on Woolman Way. We've discussed this in the past, and that's going to be their 25% match that they're required through the County of Morris grants. They're very optimistic about this. They're making a grant application for $100,000. The anticipation is that their match will come from their property donation, and they're going to look to sell those 2 constructed homes for $135,000. They constructed to LEED certifications, as we've spoken of in the past, and we think it's a good application. They've been a good partner with Mount Olive Township. The backup application is in council's packet if there's any questions, but they intend on moving forward with this application with council's blessing.
Any questions on it? Mr. Roman?
Sean, what's the tax impact on the tax roll going forward with this property?
Well, when they turn around and sell them, right, it's considered low-income housing, so the tax assessment on that property will be the prevailing assessment on that. They won't be assessed as much as a regular home. I believe they're under the COA, the low-income classification.
And what difference are we talking? What's it taxed at now, that property?
They're unapproved right now, so
Oh.
even at the lower moderate rate, it's going to be higher than what you get now.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
Maybe.
Okay, any questions on the resolutions? Seeing none. We have 3 ordinances. Any questions or comments on the ordinances? Seeing none. Any old business? Any new business? Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none. Adjourned, do we have an adjourned to public meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Michelle, would you read the Open Public Meetings Act?
According to the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting has been given to the Daily Record. Notice has been posted in the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, and notices were sent to those requesting the same.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda,
Here,
Mrs. Labow,
Here.
Mr. Mania, Mr. Perkins.
Here.
Mr. Roman,
Here.
Mr. Ferrante.
Here.
Mr. Nacastro.
Here. Mr. Amianda, would you approve the minutes from the previous meetings, January 20th, workshop, public meeting, and closed session?
yes, Mr. President, I make a motion for approval of minutes of previous meetings.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes,
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Abstain.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes, thank you. We have 21 pieces of correspondence. Any questions or concerns on those? Seeing none. We have 3 ordinances for first reading. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 2-2015, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive, in the City of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing the conveyance of the deed of historic preservation easement to the Morris County Board of Chosen Freeholders for the property currently known as Block 7801, Lot 14, as the Mount Olive Baptist Church. Mrs. Labow.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that ordinance number 2-2015 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on February 20th, 2015 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
yes,
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Ferrante?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Next item on the agenda for the first reading is ordinance number 3-2015. Pleased to be a correction on 2015,
Oh,
just 3015. And also county while we're there, I'm sorry, in the county boards. Ordinance number 3-2015, ordinance reappropriating $82,728.09 proceeds of obligations not needed for their original purposes in order to provide for various recreation improvements and by the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, New Jersey. Mr. Perkins.
Yes, Mr. President, I move that ordinance number 3-2015 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, that a meeting be held on February 20th, 2015 at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of the law.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
yes,
Mrs. Labow?
Yes.
Mr. Mania? Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Fronte?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Next item on the agenda for first reading is ordinance number 4-2015, an ordinance of the Township of Mount Olive in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to amend Chapter 211, Article 2, Section 211-15, entitled Placement of Material for Collection. Mr. Roman?
Thank you. I move that ordinance number 4-2015 be introduced by title and passed on first reading, and that a meeting be held on February 20th, 2015, at 7 p.m. at the Municipal Building, 204 Flanders Drakestown Road, Bud Lake, New Jersey, for a public hearing, consideration of second reading, and passage of said ordinance, and that the clerk be directed to publish, post, and make available said ordinance in accordance with the requirements of law.
Second?
Thank you. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Fronte?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes, thank you. We have 8 resolutions. Mr. Ferrante?
Sure, I make a motion to move consent resolutions 1 through 8.
Second.
Was there any, I'm sorry, was there any to be moved to non-consent? No. Anyone from the public wish to be heard? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Fronte?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Mr. Ferrante, would you move the bill list, please?
Sure, I make a motion to move the bill list.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
To the garbage.
Mr. Amianda?
Yes.
Mrs. Laybow?
Yes.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Roman?
Yes.
Mr. Fronte?
Yes.
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes. Administrative reports.
I have 2 things. First of all, Wounded Warrior, 4 o'clock, Flanders Firehouse. And I'm having a fundraiser, 7 o'clock, at my office in Alamucci on Saturday.
When is the Wounded Warrior again? I'm sorry.
4.
The fundraiser's at 7.
And the Wounded Warrior, oh, that's
Fundraiser's at 7. Wounded Warrior's at 4.
at 4 on Saturday.
4 o'clock.
At Flanders
at,
Fire.
Flanders Fire.
Okay, thank you. Sean, anything?
Just the auction items that was in council's packet today, doing our yearly due diligence, cleaning out the back lots and anything else that's floating around that needs to be sold.
All right.
This year, we're selling Frank Wilbert Jr.
Any old business. Seeing not any new business. Jeff, any legal matters?
Thank you, Council
I should
President.
have riced him, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The administration continues to keep us busy with various projects and assignments. Other than that, we have nothing specific coming.
Thank you. Council reports. Mr. Amianda, anything from Board of Ed?
No.
Mr. Ferrante, anything environmental, lake, or library?
Nothing.
Ms. Laybow, seniors or economic development and TNR?
Nothing for seniors or EDC. For the TNR, they're already scheduling a adoption day for March 14th at the PetSmart in Rockaway from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Okay.
We have a really great group of volunteers on the ball planning events, and so she already sent one out for March 14th.
March 14th.
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Perkins, we went over MOTV, I assume? We're fine? Or you have-
Yeah, I'll stay the liaison until we
Okay.
finalize things.
Yes. Mr. Roman, anything on open space or rec?
The space is still open, and we are still recreating. Other than that, I have nothing to report.
And I have nothing on Board of Health.
Mr. President?
Mayor, yes.
Yeah, one other thing, I'm sorry. There was an issue which was raised by Councilman Ferrante over the last day and a half. I suggested you speak to Jeff about that issue, be able to give you some guidance in terms of the issues that were addressed by that email.
Thank you.
Thank you. Public portion, anyone wish to be heard? Seeing none, council comments? Mr. Amianda?
Yeah, I was going to say something about the funding. It is good to see the funding of MOMAC restored to the budget. Although we have not voted on it, but there is a movement by the council persons that this organization should be funded. And just also to add to that is that I want to appraise the members that funding the alliance is a sponsored program. This is a sponsored program from the Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drug Abuse. It is also funded from town matching funds. also from fundraising events and private donations. So it will not be solely the council that will be funding MOMAC part of this. MOMAC and community assist in promoting and funding their program offered to 5th and 7th students by the Mount Olive Police Department, their officers. It also assists in funding establishment of an adventure rope course at Mount Olive High School. Based on my experience and knowledge as a board of education representative to MOMAC, their officer has never been a full-time job, and its cost, and it does not cost as much as 100,000 as we were trying to share the information on that point. So that's what I just wanted to share with them. That's what I know about it.
Thank you. Ms. Lebo?
And by the way, also
I'm
to
sorry.
add on it, mostly MOMAC and also there is mostly manned, the people, we have volunteers, the volunteers come in. For example, I remember the last time we had it with a lady from Roxbury who was part of, who was a vice, he was the president, and Vanessa from the Mount Olive Police Township was the chairman. So it's a volunteer, it's a program that most people would like to participate in it.
Thank you. Ms. Lebo?
We have nothing, thank you.
Mr. Perkins?
Nothing, Mr. President.
Mr. Roman?
I have nothing.
Mr. Fryland?
Nothing tonight.
Nothing for me. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hang that gavel, Joe. Better to go.